The Galactic Combat Academy floated in space between three star systems. It was a huge station where the best soldiers from across the galaxy came to learn. For 200 years, it had trained warriors from peaceful worlds. They learned to fight through computer games and safe practice runs. Commander Vexthal stood in front of his new students. He had purple skin and 4 eyes. His people came from a small moon with weak gravity and almost no dangerous animals. Like most smart species in the galaxy, his kind believed in being careful. They thought hard before acting. They valued safety above all else. "Welcome to advanced tactical combat," Vexthal said. His words came through a translator that changed his singing voice into normal speech. "This class is hard. 4 out of 10 students will fail. You will learn to stay alive by following rules, using safety steps, and thinking before you move." The class had 12 students from different alien species. Vexthal's helper was a being named Petalia. She looked like a walking flower and spoke by changing colors. The translators could read these color changes pretty well. "We have someone new this time," Vexthal told the class. "Our first student from Earth." The room went silent. Everyone knew about Earth. It was a death world. The gravity there was so strong it would crush most aliens flat. The planet had so many predators that humans barely slept. They had eyes that pointed forward like hunters. They even ate other animals to survive. A human woman walked into the room. She had brown hair tied back and carried a simple bag. She moved easily, which seemed wrong for someone from a world with double gravity. "Sorry I'm late," she said with a smile. "I'm Katie Morrison." Vexthal's eyes went wide. The human was showing her teeth. On most civilized worlds, that meant you were ready to attack someone. "Please sit down," he managed to say. Katie dropped into a chair. It made a loud creaking sound under her weight. Her body was much denser than the aliens around her. She did not seem to notice the other students moving away from her. "Today we start with basic safety rules," Vexthal continued. He tried to sound calm. "Petalia, please give out the combat suits." The flower assistant handed out training armor to each student. The suits were light and thin. They would protect students during practice fights but let them move freely. Katie looked at her suit. Then she raised her hand. "Yes, Cadet Morrison." "Can this suit work in space?" Katie asked. "Like in real vacuum?" "Of course not," Vexthal said. He felt confused. "These are practice suits for computer games. Why would they need to work in space?" Katie lifted her shoulders in a shrug. "Just checking. Back home we sometimes trained in real vacuum. I thought I would ask." The classroom became completely still. Petalia's petals turned a pale color that meant she was shocked. "You trained in real vacuum?" Vexthal asked slowly. "With no air at all?" "Well, yeah," Katie said like this was normal. "You can't really understand what happens when a pressure suit breaks until you've felt it happen, right? Don't worry, we had safety ropes. Most of the time. Most of the time." A student who looked like a 6-legged otter made a high, scared sound. His people came from a world with air so thick that even their spaceships kept extra pressure inside. Vexthal decided to move on quickly. "Let us go to the game pods. Today's test is simple. Your ship has been hit by space rocks. You must walk to the engine room and fix a small hole in the hull before you run out of air. You have 20 minutes. The students walked to their game pods one by one. Each pod would create a fake world that felt completely real. Vexthal watched them settle in. He could see their heart rates and breathing on his screens. Katie's pod was last. As she climbed inside, Vexthal saw she was still smiling that scary smile. "Starting the game in 3, 2, 1, he said. The test was standard. They used it for first-year students everywhere. A simple broken hallway, some floating junk, a clear path to the engine room. The hole was easy to spot. The repair kit had labels. The steps were simple. Most students finished in 12 to 15 minutes. Vexithal watched all 12 screens at once. The other students moved carefully, just like they were taught. They checked corners. They tested each grip. They moved with slow purpose. Then he looked at Katie's screen and felt his chest tighten. She was running. Not walking fast. Not moving with care. She was actually running through a damaged spaceship. Her powerful legs pushed her down the hall at speeds that could cause bad injuries if she grabbed wrong. "Cadet Morrison!" Vexthal shouted into her pod speaker. "Slow down! This is a safety test, not a race!" "Got it!" Katie's voice came back happy. She did not slow down at all. Vexthal watched in fear as she came to a part where junk blocked the hall. The right way was to carefully move each piece. You had to check that nothing would break before you kept going. Katie looked at the obstacle for maybe 2 seconds. Then she jumped at it. She grabbed a metal beam and swung her body through a gap that looked too small. She pulled her legs in, spun in the air with perfect control, and landed in a roll on the other side. "By the ancestors," Patalia whispered. Her petals had turned purple, which meant she was very disturbed. Katie reached the engine room in 4 minutes and 37 seconds. This was a new Academy record. She beat the old best time by more than 5 minutes. She fixed the hole with easy skill. Then she stood in the fake hallway, waiting. Her heart rate on Vexthal's screen was barely up. The human had just done what should have been a hard, scary emergency job. Her body treated it like a light warm-up. When all students finished and came back to the classroom, Vexithal struggled to find words. "Cadet Morrison," he finally said, "your time was very good, but you broke many safety rules. You moved too fast. You did not check if things were safe before you climbed over them. You acted like your life depended on speed, not on being careful." Katie looked confused. But there was a hole in the hull. In a real situation, every second would matter. Air was leaking out. "This was a practice test," Vexthal explained with patience. "It was made to teach the right steps. Speed is not the goal." "Oh," Katie said. She thought for a moment. "So you want me to go slower next time?" "Much slower. This is about staying alive, not going fast." Katie nodded, but Vexthal could see something in her eyes. Something that made his old prey instincts send warning signals through his body. The human was not afraid. Not of the game, not of the fake danger, not of anything. She was bored. Over the next 3 days, Vexthal began to understand the real problem. Katie Morrison was not mean. She was not careless in the normal way. She simply had no idea what proper fear felt like. In the zero-gravity class, she did something that disturbed the other students deeply. When learning to handle a spinning fall, she made herself spin faster than the medical database said was safe. Then she fixed her spin using tiny movements of her body. When Patalia asked how she knew how to do this, Katie explained that humans had something called gymnastics. She said she did it for fun when she was a kid. 3 days passed, and Vexthal learned more about his human student. Katie Morrison was not mean or cruel. She did not try to break rules just to cause trouble. The real problem was simple. She had no fear of things that should scare her. Vexthal stood in the watching room above the main combat game area. This was a huge room that could create any kind of fake battle. Today would be the first real test, a fake enemy boarding action. "We have used this game for 70 years, Vexthal told his helper. "It is set up very carefully. The enemy fighters come in waves. This gives students time to set up defenses, call for help, and fall back when needed. No student has ever beaten all the waves. The goal is to teach when to fight and when to run away." Patalia's petals showed curiosity through their color. "You are worried about the human." "She does not run away," Vexthal said quietly. "Her species did not learn that skill. I have read about their wars. They have a saying, 'We will hold.' Not we might hold, or we should try to hold. Just we will hold. They say it like a fact. That sounds like a bad way to survive." Petalia said. Her species has 6 billion members and they are spreading to new star systems, Vexthal replied. It seems to have worked for them. The other students entered the game room first. Vexthal had put Katie with 3 other cadets. There was Skrit, a careful bug-like alien with 6 legs. There was Korval, another purple alien like Vexthal who thought before acting. And there was Pip, a student who looked like an otter and wanted to be a combat doctor. They stood in a fake spaceship hallway. They held training weapons that shot harmless light beams. The game would count hits and misses and check if they made good choices. Starting the game, Vexthal said. Enemy soldiers have broken into Deck 7. Your job is to slow them down while Command makes a plan. Rules. You can only shoot when they shoot first. You must run away if your spot becomes too dangerous. Begin. The first wave appeared at the far end of the hall. 3 fake enemy soldiers. They were simple shapes designed not to look like any real species. Skrit quickly hid behind a support beam. Korval took a good defensive spot by the book. Pip got his medical scanner ready. Katie walked forward. "Cadet Morrison!" Vexthal yelled over the speaker. "Get to a defensive position." "I am making a position," Katie said calmly. "Just a bit further up." She kept walking toward the enemy soldiers. The fake enemies raised their guns. This was the moment to take cover and shoot back, according to the rules. Katie started running at them. "What is she doing?" Petalia said with shock. The human closed the distance in seconds. The game's computer brain was built to react to normal fighting styles. It seemed confused by someone who charged straight at 3 enemies. Katie reached the first enemy and did something the translator had trouble explaining. She grabbed its gun, twisted her body, and used her Deathworld strength to throw the armed soldier into its friend. The third enemy fired. Katie had already moved. She rolled under the shot with that same impossible speed she showed in the junk field. She came up close and hit the enemy hard enough that the game said it was down. 5 seconds. 3 enemies beaten. "By the ancestors," Vexthal whispered. Behind Katie, her team stood frozen. Skrit's translator made a continuous scared sound. Korval's 4 eyes were wider than Vexthal had ever seen. "Wave 1 down," Katie reported happily. "Should we move forward or stay here?" "Stay there," Vexthal managed to say. His hands shook as he changed the game settings. Wave 2 appeared. 5 enemies this time. They moved more carefully. The computer had watched Katie's tactics and was learning. Katie looked at the situation. Then she turned to her team. "Skrit, I need covering fire on the 3 to the left. Korval, you take the 2 on the right. Pip, stay ready with medical help." "We are supposed to fall back," Korval said weakly. "We can hold this spot," Katie replied. "Trust me." There was something in her voice. Not bragging, not showing off, just complete certainty. Skrit went against every instinct telling him to run. He leaned out from cover and fired. His shots missed, but they made the fake enemies take cover. Katie moved. Vexthal watched with growing fear as the human showed fighting skills that should not be possible. She used the hallway like she had built it herself. She appeared from angles the enemy computer did not expect. When she fired, she did not aim carefully like other students. She just pointed her gun with casual skill and pulled the trigger while moving. Every shot hit. "Not possible," Petalia breathed. "The human is not even standing still to aim." "She does not need to," Vexthal realized. "Look at her eyes." They were forward-facing hunter eyes. They grew to track fast-moving prey across long distances. Mixed with her species' fast brain and good hand control, Katie could aim and fire faster than the game could react. Wave 2 fell in 11 seconds. Vexthal pulled up Katie's body signs. Her heart was beating faster now, but not dangerously. Her breathing was controlled. The fear chemicals flooding her body would knock out most species. But humans had grown to fight while full of these chemicals. "Wave 3, go!" Vexthal said quietly into his controls. 8 enemies appeared. The game was now throwing everything at Katie. It was going beyond what the original test was supposed to do. This time, Katie did not charge. She turned to her team and spoke quickly. "Skrit, you're faster than you think. I need you on the left side. Korval, center spot. Keep shooting. Pip, if anyone gets hit, fix them right away. We hold here." "This is crazy," Korval whispered. "It's smart," Katie corrected. "We have a better defensive spot and they have to come down a narrow hall. We have every advantage." She was right. Vextal could see it. The human had looked at the tactical situation in seconds and found what the computer had not. This spot could be defended. "Humans are top predators," Vextal said quietly. "This is what that means." The battle happened. Katie directed her team with calm skill. She called out targets and movements. Skrit found himself shooting better than he ever had in training. Korval followed Katie's orders and set up good firing patterns. When one enemy shot got through and hit Skrit's leg, Pip was there instantly with his medical scanner, just like Katie had placed him. Wave 3 fell, then Wave 4, then Wave 5. Vextal stopped sending enemies. The game was not built to go past 5 waves. No student had ever lived that long. Katie finally let her team fall back to a second position. She did a perfect fighting retreat that would make any teacher proud. She covered her teammates and made sure everyone reached safety. Then she followed, walking backward down the hall with her gun still up. When the game ended, her team stood around her in shock. "That was amazing," Pip chirped, his fear forgotten. "I have never done field medicine that well." "You were in the right spot," Katie said. "You did great." Skrit's translator formed words. How did you move like that? How did you know what to do?" Katie seemed truly confused by the question. "I mean, it's just combat. You look at the situation, use your advantages, and do it. Basic stuff." Basic stuff. Vextal entered the game room and stood before Katie. His 4 eyes studied her carefully. "Cadet Morrison," he said slowly, "you just finished a game that is designed to be unwinnable. You defended perfectly with no one hurt. Your team performed better than ever before under your command." Katie waited. She clearly expected him to yell at her for breaking some rule. "How?" Vextal asked simply. Katie thought about it. "My dad was a Marine," she said. "He taught me that being scared is fine, but you can't let it control you. You use the fear, channel it, make it make you faster and sharper. And humans, we're good at that. We grew to hunt things that could hunt us back." "Your whole species did combat training as children?" Patalia asked. Her petals were now a curious yellow color. "Well, sort of," Katie admitted. "We call it sports, games. But yeah, we spend our whole childhood learning to track moving things, work with teams, push our bodies past what seems possible. I played soccer, did martial arts, went rock climbing. Just normal kid stuff." Normal kid stuff. Vextal understood now. The galaxy's species had grown on gentle worlds. They made intelligence to avoid fights, to build safe groups, to protect themselves with tools and teamwork. Humans made intelligence to become better hunters. "Class dismissed," Vextal said. "Cadet Morrison, please stay." The other students left. They looked at Katie with awe and a little fear as they went. When they were alone, Vextal spoke quietly. "You understand that you have made a problem." "Sir?" Katie looked truly confused. "The other students are now questioning everything they have been taught. You made combat look easy. You made survival look casual. This is dangerous." Katie's face changed. "I'm sorry, Commander. I didn't mean to. I was just doing what made sense." "I know," Vextal said. "That is exactly the problem. What makes sense to a Deathworlder is madness to the rest of us." He paused. "But your tactics were good. Your leadership was very good. And your team survived." "So what do I do?" Katie asked. Vextal thought hard. "You teach us," he said finally, "but slowly, very slowly. Most species cannot handle Deathworlder tactics. But maybe some of those tactics can be changed to work for those of us who did not grow up fighting predators. Katie brightened. I can do that. I'll be more careful about explaining my thinking. As she left, Vexthal turned to Petalia. Contact the Academy D2 weeks into the term, Commander Vexthal set up what he called a cultural exchange meeting. Really, it was his attempt to understand Katie Morrison before she scared the entire student body into quitting. The meeting room was smaller and less formal than the main classrooms. The seats were arranged in a circle to help everyone talk. Vexthal had invited Katie and 6 other students from different alien species. Today, we will talk about how our different homeworlds shaped how we survive and fight, Vexthal said. This is not a contest. This is a chance to learn from each other. Katie sat comfortably in her chair. She held a cup of something she called coffee. It was steaming in her hands. She had explained that it was a mild drug drink made from ground plant seeds. The fact that humans drank poison to wake up was just another item on Vexthal's growing list of concerning Deathworlder behaviors. Maybe we should start with you, Cadet Morrison, Vexthal suggested. Tell us about Earth. Katie took a sip of her coffee and smiled. Sure. Where should I start? The gravity? Offered Pip, the otter-like medical student. We have all heard that Earth is a high-gravity world. Oh, yeah, Katie nodded. Normal gravity there is about twice what it is here on the station. When I first got here, I kept jumping too high by accident and hitting my head on things. The other students shifted uncomfortably. The idea of a world with crushing gravity was bad enough. The idea that someone could find lower gravity annoying was worse. What about predators? Asked a flower being named Bristle. Did your species face many threats during evolution? Katie laughed. Did we ever? Earth is kind of a nightmare planet, honestly. We have predators on land, in the water, and in the air. Big cats that can kill prey twice their size. Bears that weigh over half a ton. Crocodiles that have stayed basically the same for millions of years because they're already perfect killing machines. Sharks, wolves, poisonous snakes, and spiders. Scrit's translator made a sound like choking. His home world had exactly 3 native predator species. All of them were small and easy to avoid. And you lived with these creatures? Bristle asked. Well, we mostly killed them, Katie said, like it was no big deal. Or pushed them into smaller areas. Humans are the top predator on Earth. We've been at the top of the food chain for thousands of years. How? Korval asked. Forgive me, but you do not look particularly dangerous. You have no natural weapons. No claws, no fangs, no armor. Katie set down her coffee. We have something better. We have endurance. See, humans are persistence hunters. We can run for hours without stopping. We would literally chase prey until it fell down from being too tired. And we have these. She held up her hands. Thumbs that can grip. Tool use. We made weapons. Spears, bows, guns. We didn't need claws when we could throw sharp things from far away. Your species made weapons out of throwing things? Petalia asked. Her petals flickered with disbelief. Throwing is one of our best skills, Katie confirmed. Human shoulders and arms grew specifically to throw things with accuracy and force. Even our kids play games based on throwing balls. It's automatic for us. Vexthal made a note on his data pad. Humans were naturally armed with built-in throwing weapons in their biology. Wonderful. What about your sleep? Pip asked. I have noticed you need less rest than most species. Yeah, humans only need about 6 to 8 hours of sleep per day, Katie said. Some people work fine on less. We grew to be alert and active for long periods because predators on Earth hunted both day and night. You couldn't afford to be weak for too long. A student named Quill spoke up nervously. He was a delicate bird species from a low-gravity moon. But surely Earth must have safe zones, protected areas where your species could develop culture and cities without constant threat. Katie thought about this. Not really. I mean, humans spread to every continent on Earth. We lived in deserts where the heat could kill you in hours. We lived in frozen areas where nothing grows. We lived in jungles filled with disease and predators. We lived on islands surrounded by ocean storms. We even built cities in areas with earthquakes, volcanoes, and hurricanes, and just adapted. That is not adapting, Bristle said quietly. That is being stubborn to the point of insanity. Katie laughed again. Yeah, humans are pretty stubborn. We have this thing where if you tell us something is impossible, we take it as a challenge. We climbed the highest mountain on Earth just because it was there. We went to our moon just to prove we could. We sent probes out of our solar system just to see what was out there. Your species left your planet before having a unified government? Vexthal asked. He already knew the answer but wanted to hear Katie explain it. Oh yeah, Katie confirmed. We had multiple competing nations when we reached space. Actually, that competition is part of what made us advance so quickly. We were racing each other to achieve goals. The room fell silent. Most species waited until they had global unity and peace before trying space travel. The idea of competing groups racing to leave their homeworld while still possibly at war with each other was deeply upsetting. Cadet Morrison, Vexthal said carefully, help us understand something. You describe a world of constant danger, competing groups, and hostile environments. Yet you speak of it with fondness. Katie's face softened. Earth is beautiful, she said simply. Yes, it's dangerous. Yes, survival required our ancestors to be tough and able to adapt, but that danger created incredible variety. We have environments ranging from coral reefs to rainforests to frozen lands. We have thousands of species of birds, millions of species of insects, mammals, reptiles, fish. Earth is alive in a way that I think most worlds aren't. Your world is a jungle, Corval observed. A beautiful, deadly jungle. Maybe, Katie agreed, but it's home, and it made us who we are. Pip raised a delicate paw. May I ask a medical question? I have been studying human biology, and there are some things I do not understand. Sure, Katie said. Your pain tolerance, Pip began. It seems very high. I reviewed the records from our training exercises. You got hit by impacts that should have caused major distress, yet you kept going without any apparent difficulty. Katie shrugged. Humans make natural painkillers when we're under stress. Adrenaline, endorphins. It lets us keep fighting even when injured. It's a survival thing. You can keep fighting while wounded? Quill asked, horrified. Well, yeah. I mean, if a predator wounded you, stopping to feel bad about it would just get you killed. So humans grew to separate themselves from pain. We feel it, but we can push through it if we need to. Vexthal watched the other students processing this information. They were beginning to understand what he had already realized. Humans were not just strong or fast or tough. They were mentally adapted to keep working under conditions that would knock out most species. Let me ask you something, Katie, Vexthal said. During the boarding game, you were not afraid. Why? Katie thought about this carefully. I wouldn't say I wasn't afraid. Fear is useful. It sharpens your focus, speeds up your reactions, gives you energy. But I was trained not to let fear control me. Humans have this saying, courage is not the absence of fear. It's acting, despite fear. We teach our children to acknowledge fear and then do what needs to be done anyway. You teach children to override survival instincts? Bristle asked. We teach them to manage survival instincts, Katie corrected. There's a difference. Running away isn't always the best survival plan. Sometimes you need to stand your ground. Sometimes you need to fight. Humans learn to look at the situation and choose the right response. Skrit, who had been silent for most of the talk, finally spoke. In the game, when you told us to hold position, I wanted to run. Every instinct told me to flee, but I trusted you. How did you know we would not all die? Katie met his many eyes steadily. Because I looked at our tactical position, calculated the enemy's probable approach, evaluated my team's abilities, and determined that we had a 73% chance of successful defense. The odds were in our favor. You calculated all of that in seconds, Corvale asked. It's what combat training does, Katie explained. You learn to process information quickly, make decisions under pressure, and trust your analysis. Yes, I did it fast, but that's because I've been doing similar calculations since I was a kid. Sports, games, martial arts, they all teach you to read situations and react right. Vexthal leaned forward. And if the odds had not been in our favor? Katie's face became serious. Then I would have ordered a fighting retreat, set up a second defensive position, and called for help. I'm not careless, Commander. I just have a different idea of acceptable risk than most species. Because you are a Deathworlder, Petalia said softly. Because I'm human, Katie agreed. Look, I understand that my approach seems crazy to you, but you have to understand everything that makes Earth dangerous is what made humans successful. We adapted to a harsh world, and that adaptation made us tough, creative, and determined. Those traits served us well on Earth, and they'll serve us well out here in space. The room was quiet for a long moment. Then Pip spoke up. I have learned more practical combat medicine in 2 weeks with you than in 6 months of normal training. You showed me that speed matters, that positioning matters, that planning ahead matters. You made me better. Skrit clicked his mouth parts in agreement. You made me braver. I did not know I could be brave. Katie smiled at them, and this time the other students did not pull back. They were beginning to understand that the human's tooth showing was not a threat, but a sign of warmth. That's the thing about bravery, Katie said. Everyone has it. Sometimes you just need the right situation to find it. As the meeting ended and students left, Vexthal noticed something interesting. Several students were walking closer to Katie than they had before. They asked questions and talked with her. The fear was being replaced by curiosity. Petalia came up to him as the room emptied. Your thoughts, Commander? It happened during a routine maintenance shift on the Academy's outer hull. Vexthal was in his office looking over training schedules when the alarm sounded. Not a practice drill. The real emergency alarm, a sound that had not been heard at the Academy in 17 years. Maintenance Bay 7, Petalia's voice came over his communicator. Her color translation showed severe distress. Explosive decompression. 6 students trapped in the affected section. Vexthal was already running. His 4 eyes scanned data streaming to his handheld screen. Maintenance Bay 7 had suffered a terrible failure. A tiny meteor had struck a weak hull plate during a student maintenance exercise, causing a blowout. The emergency doors had sealed, but 6 students were in the damaged zone with limited air supplies. The rescue plan was clear. Seal the section, calculate the safest approach, put together a properly equipped rescue team, and move with caution. Standard rules called for at least 30 minutes of preparation time. Vexthal reached the Emergency Coordination Center to find it in controlled chaos. Academy security workers were getting ready, rescue equipment was being handed out, and damage control teams were checking the breach. And Katie Morrison was already in a hard suit, checking seals. Cadet Morrison, what are you doing? Vexthal demanded. Getting ready to go in, Katie replied. Her tone was matter-of-fact. The students trapped inside have maybe 40 minutes of air. By the time the official rescue team is ready, that'll be down to 10 minutes. Not enough safety margin. You are not authorized for rescue operations, Vexthal said, even as part of his mind calculated that Katie was absolutely right about the timing. With respect, Commander, I'm the most qualified person here. Katie's hands moved with practiced skill, securing her suit's seals. I've done emergency void rescue drills. I'm rated for hard vacuum operations, and I can move fast. A purple security officer named Kelvin approached. Commander, she is correct about the timeline. If we follow standard rules, the margin for error becomes too small. Vexthal's 4 eyes narrowed. You are suggesting we send one student to rescue 6 others? I'm suggesting you let me try, Katie said. She was already moving toward the airlock. You can have the official team ready as backup, but those students don't have 30 minutes. Every instructor rule in Vexthal's training told him to say no. This was careless. This was dangerous. This was exactly the kind of Deathworlder behavior that could get someone killed. But the trapped students had 38 minutes of air left. Go, Vexthal heard himself say. But you follow my commands exactly. I will guide you from here. Katie's smile was visible through her helmet window. Understood, Commander. Let's bring them home. She entered the airlock, and Vexthal pulled up the video feed from her suit camera. Around him, the Emergency Coordination Center fell silent as everyone watched. The airlock cycled. Katie stepped into the damaged section. Her suit lights showed twisted metal and floating debris. The entire bay was open to vacuum, stars visible through the huge breach in the hull. 6 students, multiple species, Vexthal reported, reading from his display. 3 purple aliens like me, 2 flower beings, 1 bug-like alien, located in the maintenance control room about 200 meters from your position. The path is blocked. Copy that, Katie's voice came back, steady and calm. Beginning approach. Vexthal watched as Katie looked at the debris field. The proper approach would be to carefully navigate around obstacles, testing each handhold, moving with extreme caution in zero gravity. Katie jumped. She used her powerful Deathworlder legs to launch herself across the bay, sailing over the debris field. At the halfway point, she grabbed a sticking-out beam, used it to change her direction, and pushed off again. Cadet Morrison, that is extremely dangerous, Vexthal said, even as he marveled at her path calculations. Faster, though, Katie replied. And speed matters. She was right. She had crossed the debris field in 45 seconds. A cautious approach would have taken 10 minutes. Katie reached the maintenance control room's emergency hatch. I've got eyes on the students. They're conscious but scared. The room's holding pressure, but I can see stress cracks around the doorframe. If those go, they lose air fast. Can you get them out? Vexthal asked. Working on it. Katie looked at the hatch mechanism. The emergency release is jammed. Debris impact must have bent the frame. Through the helmet cam, Vexthal could see Katie's hands moving across the hatch, checking the damage. Then she did something that made every observer in the coordination center gasp. She braced her feet against the wall and pulled on the hatch with her full strength. Metal groaned. The hatch, designed to need tools and proper leverage to open, began to move. Impossible, Kelvin whispered. The force required Deathworlder muscles, Vexthal said quietly, combined with adrenaline. She is using her entire body as a lever. The hatch gave way. Katie pulled it open and locked it in place. I'm in. Checking students now. Inside the control room, 6 terrified young people huddled together. Katie moved among them quickly, checking seals and air supplies. Okay, here's the situation, Katie announced. Her voice projected calm authority. We're going to exit in 2 groups. Your suits are good, and you have enough air to reach the main airlock. I'll guide you through the debris field. One of the flower students, a young one named Petal, was shaking so badly her leaves were falling off. I cannot do this. I cannot move through vacuum. I will freeze. I will die. Katie knelt beside her, helmet to helmet. Petal, look at me. You're not going to die. I've done this hundreds of times. Vacuum isn't that scary once you understand it. Your suit is good. Your air is good. I'll be with you the whole way. But the debris, the distance. Petal's translator was barely working through her panic. I'll carry you if I have to, Katie said simply. You're coming home. All of you are. I promise. There was something in the human's voice. That same absolute certainty Vexthal had heard during the combat game. Katie organized the students into two groups. The three purple aliens, who were more comfortable in low-gravity environments, went first. Katie guided them through the debris field. Her movements were skilled and sure. She had them rope themselves together into her suit, creating a human anchor point. They reached the main airlock in 6 minutes. "Group 2, let's move," Katie announced, returning for the remaining students. Petal was still frozen with fear. Katie made a decision. "Skrit, Pip, you two follow my exact path. Petal, you're with me." The flower student was small, maybe a third of Katie's mass. The human simply clipped Petal's suit to her own, securing the terrified student to her chest. "Hold on tight," Katie said gently. "We're going for a ride." What happened next would become legendary at the Academy. Katie launched herself across the debris field, carrying Petal, with Skrit and Pip following the path she had cleared. She moved like she was born in zero gravity, using tiny adjustments of her body position to navigate obstacles. When a piece of debris drifted into their path, Katie extended one arm and pushed it aside without breaking stride. Vexthal watched his display showing Katie's body signs. Her heart rate was up but controlled. She was burning through her suit's oxygen faster than recommended, but she was still well within safe limits. "Approaching airlock," Katie reported. "All students accounted for." The moment the inner airlock door sealed and pressure returned, Petal detached from Katie and threw her arms around the human in what appeared to be a gesture of thanks. Katie hugged her back. Her face was gentle. "See? Not so scary," Katie said. "You saved my life," Petal whispered. "Just doing what needed to be done," Katie replied. When they removed their helmets, Vexthal was there waiting. The 6 rescued students were shaken but unhurt. Katie looked tired but satisfied. "Cadet Morrison," Vexthal began, trying to find words for what he had just witnessed. "You violated at least 14 safety rules." "Yes, sir," Katie acknowledged. "You performed a rescue operation without proper authorization." "Yes, sir." "You carried another student through a debris field in hard vacuum." "Yes, sir." Vexthal paused. "You also saved 6 lives in 11 minutes using tactics that no normal rescue team would have tried. You looked at the situation correctly, acted with decision, and brought everyone home safely." Katie waited. "I should reprimand you," Vexthal said, "but I find myself uncertain what lesson that would teach. You broke the rules because the rules were not enough for the emergency at hand. You trusted your abilities and succeeded." "Commander," Katie said carefully, "I understand that my approach seems careless to you, but I calculated the risks. I knew I could do it. And those students needed help now, not in 30 minutes. "This is the essential difference," Vexthal said, more to himself than to Katie. "We teach caution because our species grew to avoid risk. You were taught confidence because your species grew to confront risk. Neither approach is wrong, but they lead to very different decisions." Kelvin approached with a data pad. "Commander, the preliminary report. If Cadet Morrison had not acted when she did, the control room's structural integrity would have failed in about 23 minutes. The trapped students would not have survived a normal rescue." Vexthal looked at Katie with all 4 eyes. "You knew this?" "I suspected," Katie admitted. "I could see the stress cracks. The math wasn't good." "So you acted." "So I acted," Katie confirmed. Around them, the rescued students were being checked by medical staff. Petal kept looking back at Katie with a look that Vexthal's translator read as worship. "You have created a problem," Vexthal told Katie, echoing his words from weeks earlier. "Sir?" Those students now believe that humans can do anything. They will spread that story throughout the Academy. Within days, every student here will know that a single human cadet performed a rescue that should have been impossible. Katie looked uncomfortable. I don't want to be seen as special. I just did what any trained person would do. Any trained human, Vexthal corrected. That is the crucial distinction, and it is a lesson the galaxy needs to learn. Later, after the excitement had died down and the students had been released to their quarters, Vexthal found Petalia in the observation deck, looking out at the stars. "Your thoughts?" he asked. "I am rethinking everything I know about bravery," Petalia admitted. Her petals were a thoughtful shade of blue. "We teach our students to be careful, to be cautious, to avoid unnecessary risk. But Katie Morrison showed us something different. She showed us that sometimes caution is the greater risk." "A concerning idea for species that grew to avoid danger," Vexthal observed. "Perhaps," Petalia agreed. "But we now share the galaxy with species that grew to confront danger. We must adapt." Vexthal watched the stars through the window. Somewhere out there, 3 months into the term, the Galactic Combat Academy looked different. Not in its physical structure, Vexthal noted, but in its culture. The changes were subtle but everywhere, and they all traced back to one human cadet. In the training halls, students moved with more purpose. In computer games, they took calculated risks they would have avoided before. In the rest areas, conversations that once focused on theory now discussed practical use. Katie Morrison had not set out to change the academy. She had simply existed as herself, and that existence had challenged centuries of established rules. Vexthal watched from the observation deck as Katie led a mixed-species team through an advanced combat game. Her team now included Skrit, Petal, Pip, Korval, and 2 newer students. There was Streak, a cautious bird alien, and Boulder, a methodical rock-like being. The game was one Vexthal had designed specifically to test integrated tactics, combining human aggression with traditional galactic caution. "Enemy contact. 300 meters, Katie announced calmly. "Boulder, what's our terrain advantage?" The rock being, whose species processed information slowly but deeply, took a moment to respond. "The corridor narrows ahead. Defensive potential is high. However, we would be giving up the high ground position." "Good analysis," Katie said. "Now here's the human perspective. If we take the high ground now, we control the fight. If we wait for them to come to us, they choose when to fight. Recommendation: we advance to the high ground, establish defensive positions, and force them to approach on our terms." "That is aggressive," Korval observed. "It's proactive," Katie corrected. "There's a difference. We're not charging blindly. We're taking a tactical advantage before the enemy can." Skrit clicked his mouthparts thoughtfully. "I understand the logic. We move with purpose, not carelessness." "Exactly," Katie confirmed. "Everyone ready?" The team moved forward, and Vexthal was struck by how natural it looked. Katie had not forced her teammates to become human. She had instead found ways to blend human directness with each species' natural strengths. Boulder's slow processing became careful tactical analysis. Petal's cautious nature became smart position holding. Skrit's speed became rapid flanking moves. Pip's medical focus became strategic support placement. They took the high ground in 90 seconds and established a defensive position that would make any military expert proud. When the fake enemies appeared, Katie's team did not panic or retreat. They executed a coordinated defense that combined humanity's aggressive efficiency with the Galactic Coalition's emphasis on survival. The game ended with 0 casualties and complete objective success. Petalia appeared beside Vexthal. Her petals were a satisfied shade of green. "She has taught them well." "She has taught them to be themselves, but better," Vexthal corrected. "That is a rare gift." Down in the game room, Katie was conducting a review with her team. "Boulder, your terrain analysis was perfect. That's what gave us the advantage. Petal, your position holding prevented them from flanking us. Skrit, Those rapid moves kept them off balance. Pip, you saw injuries before they happened. Corval, Streak, your covering fire was by the book. This was a team win. Vexthal noticed that Katie never claimed credit for herself. She gave praise to everyone, highlighting each individual's contribution. She leads like a human, Petalia observed, but leads them as themselves. A communication alert interrupted Vexthal's observations. The academy director, an old purple alien named Elder Tixnall, was requesting his presence. In the director's office, Vexthal found not just Tixnall, but representatives from several member species of the Confederation. This was unusual. Commander Vexthal, the director began, we have been observing your integration of the human cadet into our curriculum. The results are remarkable. An otter-like diplomatic officer named Ambassador Finn spoke up. Cadet Morrison's rescue of the trapped students has not gone unnoticed. More significantly, her ability to train mixed-species teams in combined tactics has attracted attention from Confederation military leadership. Vexthal felt a knot forming in his primary stomach. What are you proposing? A demonstration, said a bug-like general whose name translated roughly to Sharpwing. The Confederation Defense Force wishes to observe human combat integration techniques. We would like to see if Cadet Morrison's methods can be scaled to actual military units. She is a student, Vexthal protested, not a military instructor. She is a bridge, Elder Tixnall said gently, between human and galactic approaches to survival. And we need that bridge, Commander. The galaxy is not entirely peaceful. There are threats emerging that our traditional cautious approaches may not adequately address. Vexthal understood the unspoken context. The Confederation had remained secure for centuries through diplomacy and defensive posturing. But there were hostile forces in unexplored regions, species that did not share the galactic commitment to peaceful coexistence, forces that might require a more human response. What exactly are you proposing? Vexthal asked carefully. An exercise, Sharpwing explained. A joint training operation between Academy students and active Defense Force units. Cadet Morrison would serve as a tactical consultant, demonstrating integration techniques. No actual combat, purely educational. And if she refuses? Then she refuses, Elder Tixnall said. We are not in the habit of forcing students into service, but we hope she will see the value in sharing her knowledge. Later that day, Vexthal called Katie to his office. He explained the proposal, watching her reaction carefully. Katie listened without interrupting. Her face was thoughtful. When he finished, she was quiet for a long moment. They want me to teach soldiers? She asked finally. They want you to demonstrate integration, Vexthal clarified. How human and galactic approaches can complement each other. And you think I should do this? I think, Vexthal said carefully, that you have already been doing this. You have shown your fellow students that different does not mean wrong. That Deathworlder tactics, properly applied, can enhance rather than replace traditional approaches. The question is whether you wish to share that on a larger scale. Katie walked to the window, looking out at the stars. When I came here, I just wanted to learn. I didn't expect to become whatever this is. A teacher, Vexthal said. You became a teacher, Katie, and a good one. She turned back to him. If I do this, I do it my way. No making other species feel inferior, no pushing human superiority, just honest skill sharing and mutual respect. I would expect nothing less, Vexthal replied. The demonstration was scheduled for 2 weeks later, giving Katie time to prepare. She approached it with characteristic directness, organizing her thoughts and creating what she called a cultural integration combat manual. Vexthal read the manual with fascination. It was not a list of human tactics. It was a framework for understanding how different species could work together, using their unique evolutionary advantages. For cautious species, how to use careful analysis to balance human aggression. For quick species, how to use speed to complement human endurance. For strong species, how to use power in coordination with human precision. For fragile species, how to use their unique abilities while humans provided defense. It was brilliant in its simplicity. Katie was not trying to make everyone fight like humans. She was showing how everyone could fight like themselves, only better. The day of the demonstration arrived. A mixed group of Academy students and Defense Force workers assembled in the Academy's largest training facility. Katie stood before them, looking remarkably calm for someone about to address decorated military officers. "Thank you all for coming," she began. "I'm going to show you some things that might seem strange or uncomfortable. That's okay. Different doesn't mean wrong. It just means different." She spent the first hour on theory, explaining human evolutionary background without making it sound superior. She discussed Earth's dangers matter-of-factly, framing them as context rather than boasts. Then came the practical demonstration. Katie organized mixed teams, each containing humans and various galactic species. She ran them through increasingly complex scenarios, pausing frequently to explain her reasoning. "Notice how Boulder takes time to analyze," she told the observers. "In human military doctrine, we might see that as slowness. But look what happens when we give him 30 seconds to process. His assessment is more complete than my snap judgment, so we adapt. I make the quick call, he validates it. Together, we're faster and more accurate than either of us alone," she demonstrated with Petal next. "Petal's species automatically seeks cover. Human instinct is to advance. Both are valid. Watch what happens when we combine them." The game played out. Katie advanced while Petal held a secure position. Katie drew enemy fire. Petal provided covering support. When Katie needed to fall back, Petal's position was ready and secure. "Two different instincts, one effective tactic," Katie explained. "Neither of us had to change who we are. We just learned to work with, not against each other." The demonstration continued for hours. Katie showed aggressive advancement paired with cautious support. She demonstrated human endurance combined with species-specific speed bursts. She revealed how human pattern recognition could be enhanced by species with different sensory abilities, and slowly, the observers began to understand. This was not about humans teaching everyone else. This was about integration. Real integration, where every species brought their evolutionary strengths to a combined effort. After the demonstration, General Sharpwing approached Katie. "Cadet Morrison, that was extraordinary. The Defense Force would like to offer you a position as an integration specialist upon your graduation." Katie smiled. "That's very kind, General, but I came here to learn, not just to teach. I still have a lot to understand about galactic combat doctrine. Ask me again after I graduate." The general's mouth parts clicked in what Vexthal recognized as approval. "A wise answer. Learn first, teach later. You will go far, young human." As the observers filed out, Vexthal found Katie sitting alone in the training room looking tired but satisfied. "You did well," he told her. "I hope so," Katie replied. "I want them to understand that humans aren't better. We're just different. And different can be good if we're smart about it." "You succeeded in that goal," Vexthal assured her. "I watched the observers. They were not scared. They were inspired." Katie looked up at him with those forward-facing hunter eyes that he had learned to recognize as curious rather than threatening. "Can I ask you something, Commander?" "Of course." "When I first got here, you were scared of me. I could tell." "Are you still scared?" Vexthal considered the question carefully. "Yes," he admitted, "but it is a different kind of fear now. I am not afraid of what you might do to us. I am afraid of what we might become without you." Katie looked confused. "What do you mean?" "The galaxy is vast," Vexthal explained, "and it is not entirely safe. We have built a peaceful confederation, but that peace required us to avoid the dangerous regions, to retreat from threats, to put safety above expansion. For centuries this worked. But now you're meeting species that didn't make that choice, Katie finished. Species that explored the dangerous regions. Species that confronted threats instead of avoiding them. Exactly, Vexthal confirmed. And we realized that our cautious approach, while safe, left us unprepared for adversaries who do not share our values. You humans terrify us because you represent what we could have been if we had made different choices. You evolved on a world that demanded strength, and you became strong. We evolved on worlds that allowed gentleness, and we became gentle. But gentleness isn't weakness, Katie said firmly. Some of the bravest people I've met here are from species that evolved without predators. They're choosing to face their fears every day. That takes real courage. This is why you are valuable, Vexthal said. You see strength in places we have forgotten to look. You remind us that courage is not the absence of fear, but action despite fear. Katie stood and stretched. I should get back to my studies. I have a tactical theory exam tomorrow. Katie, Vexthal called as she reached the door. Thank you. For what? For being patient with us, for understanding that we need time to adapt to Deathworlder perspectives, for teaching us that different does not mean wrong. Katie's smile was genuine and warm. That's what we're all here to learn, right? How to be different together. After she left, Vexthal stood in the empty training room thinking about the future. A future where humans and the galactic species worked together, each contributing their unique strengths. The Deathworlders had arrived, not as conquerors or threats, but as partners, as teachers and students, as beings who had learned on a harsh world that survival meant more than caution. It meant courage. It meant adaptation. It meant moving forward despite the fear. And in the end, perhaps that was the greatest lesson Earth's children had to offer the stars. Humanity was spreading across space, and if Katie Morrison was any indication, they were bringing with them a completely different approach to survival. The question, Vexthal said quietly, is whether that approach will save us all or scare us into isolation. Perhaps both, Patalia suggested. Perhaps both, Vexthal agreed. In her quarters, Katie Morrison sat on her bunk, reviewing the day's events in her personal log. She did not think she had done anything particularly heroic. She had simply looked at a problem, determined the most efficient solution, and executed that solution with the skills her training had provided. It had not occurred to her that this was, in itself, an extraordinary perspective. She finished her log entry, set an alarm for her next training session, and went to sleep. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new opportunities to learn, and new chances to show her fellow students that humans, for all their Deathworlder intensity, were here to help. Humans are terrifying, Vexthal said quietly. But maybe that terror can be used for something good. They do not mean to frighten us. They simply exist at a different intensity than we do. Do you think the other species can learn from them? Vexthal watched Katie show a throwing motion to Quill, explaining how human shoulder joints worked. I think we must learn from them, because if we do not, and humanity enters a conflict with its enemies, we will be left behind. Better to learn from them as friends than to face them as enemies. A concerning thought, Patalia observed. Yes, Vexthal agreed, but also a hopeful one. Katie Morrison is not here to conquer. She is here to learn and to teach. That suggests humanity, despite its Deathworld origins, chooses cooperation over control. For now, Patalia said. For now, Vexthal echoed. Let us hope it stays that way. Erector. I think we need to change our entire combat curriculum. Because of one human? Patalia asked. Because, Vexithal said quietly. One human just showed that everything we thought we knew about combat was designed for species that grew to avoid it. Humans grew to be good at it. If we are to share a galaxy with them, we must understand what that means. Outside in the hall, Katie walked past a group of students who went silent when they saw her. She waved in a friendly way. She had no idea she had just changed the most important combat academy in known space, and somewhere in Vexthal's mind, a thought formed. If this is what one human can do in training, what will they do in a real war? He was not certain he wanted to know the answer. The idea of throwing yourself through the air on purpose, just for fun, was apparently a normal human hobby. The aliens did not know what to think. This casual human had just shown them that everything they knew about safety might be wrong, and she did not even realize she was doing it. Vexthal looked at his notes and sighed. He had many more months with this terrifying, cheerful Deathworlder. He would need to rethink everything he knew about teaching combat. And somewhere in the back of his mind, a question formed. If this is what one human student can do in a safe practice, what could humans do in a real war? He was not sure he wanted to find out,